Connoisseurs and Conversations. I am Red Alert.
And I'm Real Insight.
And what are we talking about today?
Talk about breakups. Group breakups.
Breakups to makeups. That's all some of them do.
Yeah.
But every group goes through stages where they break up.
Yeah.
So I guess I want to make sure we talk about breakups, not the temporary breakups, but those ones that make you scratch your head like, man, why did that happen? Or why did they break up?
Right.
In one of our earlier episodes, I talked about one of your favorite groups was the Gap Band. I said, when the Gap Band broke up, I couldn't stand Charlie Wilson afterwards. That was just my personal preference. It bothered me that much that I just, I had an issue with Charlie Wilson.
Right.
So we go talk about some of those breakups that made a big impact on, us after they broke up.
Yeah.
But first, why? It seems like, groups are successful and,
Right.
they all chasing the same thing. Let's figure out some of the reasons why a group might break up.
Yeah. I think that there's a plethora, if you will, of things
A
that
plethora. Okay.
of reasons why
Okay.
of why groups can go in a different direction. Obviously, the first one is money, right?
Money? Okay. I give you that.
We're not getting paid like we should. We got to pay the bills, and one person's getting paid more than the others. Then I think you have the direction of the band where they want to go, creative ideas, and someone is not being heard enough and feel that their value is worth more. So they move on. And then the maturity, right? You have to be mature in a group to understand that you're not going to get your way 100%. And so you had those lead singers that were really talented, and you had some groups that got it. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but you had groups that
no
would be
names yet. No names yet.
okay. All right, we're gonna wait for that. All right, go ahead.
But I'm gonna throw in. You said money, maturity,
Creativity.
creative differences.
Yeah. Work ethic is another one. Some would work harder than others, and some were
in the group
in
itself.
the group itself. Yeah.
That's like when you're in college, you used to have those work groups
And
together,
study groups,
study groups, and there's always that one dude show up late
and get all the answers.
or want all the answers.
Yeah.
Don't add nothing to the group
That's
except
right.
for his presence.
Right.
But I would add to that ego.
Yeah.
And that ego can be that one guy who is the main writer, the face of the group and all that kind of stuff, and he thinks that it's about them. Or it could be, I should play a bigger role than that particular person. So ego is one of them. I throw in the mix too the management of the group. It's and that's the individual who manages the group and how to manage it. The last thing that I throw in there is outside influences. That could be the media. It could be what people are saying about the group and how the group should be performing and who should be doing what, but all that stuff coming from the outside. I think that's another potential area that can cause a group to break up.
Yeah, that ego is a big one. You're right. I put that up there with money, and those two I would say would be at the top. Unfortunately, a lot of times everything comes down to that dollar bill.
Yep.
And so let's jump into this though.
So I want to get some examples of breakups that were associated with each one of these ones that we talked about. So a breakup associated with ego, a breakup that was the result of money, breakup that could have been the result of management.
Yeah. So two off the top of my head, breakup because of ego, I would say, but they were able to continue. The Temptations is one.
Oh yeah.
So you had David Ruffin, magnificent voice.
Ain't nobody come to see you, Otis.
Ain't nobody coming to see you, Otis. And that was all improvisation, according to old boy when he did that. But he was like, I want this to be David Ruffin and Temptations.
Yeah.
And so they put him out. He ended up having a successful career on his own, but they brought someone else in. And then one for money, I think of Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes with Teddy.
Was that really money though, or was that
it was money.
Teddy's ego?
I mean, I guess you put his ego in there too, but Teddy sing lead on all the songs, and Harold Melvin
Yeah.
wasn't divvying out those funds accordingly, so to speak.
Ego on the flip side.
Hmm.
I don't remember a song that Harold Melvin led. I know that there's some that are out there. Um, oh, I can think of one that I know that he sang on. I hope that we can be together
Yeah,
soon.
yeah,
You got the lady on there, Teddy
yeah.
and Harold Melvin. But outside of that,
When
it
I
ain't.
met you, girl.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
can't think of too many songs where he was
that's the
the.
point. I
I know
mean, it's
it was his
Ted.
ego,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Yeah, so those are two that come to my mind as far as ego. I would say more with Eddie. I'm sorry, with David Ruffin, and then money with Harold Melvin and Blue Notes with Teddy Pendergrass having
Yeah,
to go on its own. And thank God for that because if
man.
Teddy stayed, we don't get Turn Off the Lights and Come and
Nah.
Go with Me and all those great songs that Teddy had.
And I think that a group was too small for Teddy to really shine and show,
Yeah,
what he could do.
yeah,
Now, I'm along the lines of ego.
yeah.
This would be a pop band or
Mm-hmm,
rock band that I'm gonna highlight here.
mm-hmm,
It's the Police.
mm-hmm,
The Police is one of my favorite, bands when they were out in the 80s.
mm-hmm.
I think they dropped 3, 4 albums or something like that.
Yep,
Wasn't on the scene very long.
yep.
But Sting was the primary writer of the not just the music, but the lyrics and so forth. And I think the other guys were capable,
Mm-hmm.
but Sting was probably too big for a band
Yeah.
setting, especially when you think about what he was able to do, once he left the group.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah.
Um, that's I'd say an ego example. Hmm. I give another one that maybe it's ego too. Tribe Called Quest.
Hmm.
Now, Q-Tip did pretty much everything in the
Hmm.
group. He was the main producer.
Hmm.
Uh, you can say he was the strongest rapper. I know that they were collective. Fight did his thing,
Fife had a sound, man.
but
He had a
but
voice.
but it was almost like he was playing that. And I don't want to say he was playing second fiddle to Tip, but Tip was just such a unique voice
It
and,
was.
and unique rapper. But I think
But Fife complimented him so well. I
very well.
think that made the group. And as great as Tip was, to me, it just wasn't the same him on
No,
his own.
no, it wasn't the same.
No.
And again, that's why we talk about breakups where the group
Hmm.
or the individual just didn't have the same success. It wasn't the same after they left.
Yeah.
And then when they released their last album that had, it was the reunion with all of them on there.
Oh, that was great.
It was great.
Yeah.
And to hear him and Fight back together
Yeah.
on tracks together, it was a
Yeah.
beautiful thing.
So if we could stay in hip hop a
Okay.
little bit, NWA,
Oh yeah, yeah.
you know,
Now the question though, is that a money thing or is it an ego thing or is that a management thing?
I think all of the above, but I would say more of a management thing.
Yep.
And that management bled into money.
Hmm.
And Ice Cube's like, man, we ain't getting paid.
Hmm.
I got to go on my own. You should see this, Dre. You should see that. But sometimes you got to go through the storm to actually feel it,
Yep.
unfortunately. And but all things worked out for each one of those.
So did they break up because of management, or did they break up because Ice Cube's No Vaseline was just so bad for the group that they didn't come back together after that?
Yeah, I think they would have seen a light
Yeah, I,
eventually,
I
and I
think
think
so
they were
too.
starting to see it. So them, and then Pete Rock and CL Smooth.
Oh wow.
That one today hurts my heart with them two because
But hold
they were
on.
magic together, man.
How many albums did they drop together?
I think two.
Mecca and the Soul Brothers one, and I can't remember. I can't
Yeah,
remember if there was a second one after that.
I
That
think it's
name
just two.
wise, maybe it is just two.
Yeah, off the top of my head, I think it's two. But
But the interesting thing about it to me though is that they had a short-lived career as a group, a couple years or whatever.
yeah,
But the impact that they had in that period of time, boy,
yeah,
him and Pete, CL and Pete was definitely magic.
yeah. And so there's a lot of energy around that. You're hearing out there on social media. Pete is a master producer. And CL knows that, but there's some things going on behind the scene with that. We can only speculate as reasons why, but I have to respect it that Pete was like, hey, I think he's better on his own. And, when CL Smooth was actually say, yeah, we could work, but he doesn't have to be my brother. So that doesn't come across as positive as it can if you're trying to get back with a brother to work with you. But CL is so dynamic. He has many producers that work with him as well. So
But
he won't have a problem from that aspect. Would he get that same sound?
yeah,
I don't know.
he didn't strike that same chord and that magic that him and Pete Rock had
No,
together.
no, no.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. And
And I tell you, going back to R&B, and you mentioned all these men, but the Supremes was another one.
yeah, but they never really broke up though, right?
Yeah, Diana Ross left and she did her own thing.
She left and did her own thing.
Yeah.
Now, what would you say? Was that ego? Was that management?
I think that's, I don't know necessarily management, but I think ego is in there for sure. I think maturity is in there
Hmm.
with the ladies as far as getting along. And I'm not saying any less than any men, but I'm saying in that
Hmm.
particular situation, I think you had a lot of that going on. So,
I think a lot of that is management. I think Barry Gordy chose to make her the face of the group, and maybe he just wanted that megastar or whatever.
but that was normal. I mean, that
But
wasn't
she wasn't even.
abnormal
It wasn't right. It wasn't
to have
abnormal.
a face of the group.
But she wasn't the strongest singer, right? But she was the one who had it.
I think that's a matter of opinion. If
I
she
mean,
was,
even she will say that she wasn't the strongest singer in the group. I think her name was Florence Ballard, who was supposed to be the.
but it's not just singing,
It's
it's
presence and
showmanship, it's
everything else too.
style,
Yeah,
it's
I know.
presence, it's awareness, it's how to handle crowds, it's how to move a crowd.
Yep.
So she had the entire package. And, so I mean, we've talked about offline with great singers, Rochelle Farrell versus
Hmm.
anybody who wants to go after her.
Right.
You know what I mean? But the entire package, there
Can
are other
you?
ladies that maybe carry that a little better. But
Yep.
as far as pure singing, I wouldn't want to go after her. Tell you that.
Yep. Going back to hip hop though,
Hmm.
um, this is almost a counterpoint to Diana Ross because Diana
Hmm.
Ross went, when she left the group, she
Hmm.
was major.
Yeah.
You almost forget about the Supremes once Diana Ross hits the scene and the success she had in the 70s and 80s with Chic and all that
Hmm.
kind of stuff. This one um, was definitely the the best in the group,
Hmm.
but when they left and did their own thing, uh, shot up like a meteor and fell like a stone. I'm talking about Lauryn Hill.
Mm.
Um, you used to listen to Lauren's bars and
Fugees.
rhymes on the Fugees. She was
Yeah.
like, "Nah, man, this girl, boy,
Yeah.
whew."
Yeah.
Her album after she left the Fugees,
That's all she needed.
classic.
She needed that
I guess
money.
so, right? That's all she needed. But that one though, is it ego? I know it's some money involved in that. Um,
I think that's ego, and all three of them were talented, right?
mhm.
Wycliffe, especially, and they all could do their own thing. And sometimes when you have disagreements and creativity in the direction of the group, and they're like, man, I can do my own thing.
Yeah,
I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna do that. And so, and when you make decisions in a heated moment of anger, 9 times in 10 is a wrong decision.
but I think we also have to, all these things can intertwine
Hmm.
together without maturity and a clear understanding of where you're gonna go. And a lot
Right.
of these artists we're talking about were young
Hmm.
when they were in these groups.
Hmm.
These sorts of things will happen, just like any other relationship,
Hmm.
whether it's a business relationship or whether it's, a romantic one. If
Right.
you're not mature enough to handle the times where, you don't see eye to eye, if you're not mature enough to handle your money, your
Hmm.
finances, and you're not mature enough to handle outside influences
Right.
and ego within those relationships, you're gonna run
Yep.
into situations where y'all have to go
Yep.
your separate ways.
And, a couple others that just come to mind I throw out there. Wham. Remember Wham
Oh
with
yeah, yeah, yeah.
George Michael
But who was
and
the other dude in Wham? Come on, man.
Andrew Ridley or
Oh,
something like that?
you know his name.
Yeah, something like that. And but he knew his role at the beginning. It was all about George Michael, really.
Yep,
When they had their little, dynamic duo thing, but George Michael was obviously the talent of that, and we
absolutely.
saw that with
Hmm.
his longevity after that. The Jackson Five too. Michael when he did his own thing, and
But
left.
the group never broke up, right?
It wasn't
Well,
the same though,
it definitely wasn't the same.
Yeah.
But he was such a dominant voice in the group.
Hmm.
It only, he had to. do his
So
own
were
thing.
you just as upset when Michael when he left? Were you went with my man
N-
from
No,
the
because
guy
Charlie Wilson
Charlie
broke up
Wilson?
the band. Michael didn't break. Mike just went solo. That's different. And he came back, and they did Triumph after he came back, and
That
one
was
other
years later. Okay, all right, all right.
but one more to add to this mix too from back in the day.
Hmm.
Lionel Richie and the Commodores.
Yeah, yeah.
Now he will say he was I'm using this term too big for the band.
Hmm.
He was doing all the solo stuff and writing for other people, but he didn't. I don't think that he ever really wanted to leave the Commodores. These are the
Hmm.
guys that he grew up with.
Yeah,
Went to TU, Tuskegee University,
yeah.
my alma mater as
It's your
well.
school,
Um, but he didn't. I don't think that he
the
necessarily
Lighthouse
wanted
chapter.
to leave the Commodores, but they saw him as being too big for the group, and they kind of eased him
Yeah,
on out,
yeah. So
like
what
some
is
do.
that then? What do you call that? What's the
I
reason
think
for?
that's creative differences right there.
Yeah.
They were just on he was into writing them ballads and all that kind of stuff and doing a lot more punk, and they were still, pop stuff, and they were
But he wrote
more.
all the hits. I mean, he
Well,
did that.
he wrote a lot of them, right?
Yeah.
Maybe there were others in the group who thought that they should be getting more shine, they should be writing more
Okay.
too.
Well,
So that's why I'm
they
saying
messed around and found out, didn't they?
Night Shift was good
Well,
though.
I mean, that was years later too, but that was a number one hit,
Yep.
top 10 hit at the time. That was a
Yep.
good song,
Song.
single song.
Nah,
Yeah,
but they were never the same
they were never
after
the same.
afterwards, right?
They were never the same.
Yeah.
Another old group was the Delphonics. You know, they were similar to the Stylistics and
Mhm.
Blue Magic and groups like that. But two of the three of them were brothers, and they fell out. And they had a unique sound as well. Falsetto lead singer, which was one of the brothers.
You like the Delphonics,
I
don't you?
do, I do. It was sad to see them
Especially when
break
you
up.
got brothers involved,
Yeah,
family involved.
yeah, yeah. That song, Hey Love. I mean that. And if you just want to think and get your mind right, you just turn down a light, man. Get you a nice beverage and put that song on. It can get you definitely in the mood.
But speaking of siblings
Yeah.
and bad breakups,
What's that?
Roger Troutman,
Oh,
Zach, right?
Zach. Yeah.
You gotta put them in there.
That's tragic.
Tragic. Yeah, that's
Yeah. We probably need to do an episode
if
just
you don't know
about
that
that.
story, you can go look it up.
Yeah.
We're not gonna dwell on that one.
Yeah. 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 Guy
Ooh, interesting.
with Riley, Teddy Riley.
So
Moving on.
is Guy a situation where egos got in the way? Because you had a front man,
Yeah.
Aaron Riley, who thought that he was,
Yeah.
he thought, we talk about R. Kelly and how
Yeah.
great Kells was in his period.
Yeah.
Aaron Hall thought he was right there with him.
He wasn't though.
Mm,
No, because Kels did
yeah, I
producing,
know
writing,
we're not gonna argue,
singing.
but I'm sure
Yeah.
Aaron Hall thinks that he was right there with him.
But
But what I say is the talent, the lead or the face of the group might have thought that he had a higher place in the group than he actually had because the
right,
talent was
right,
really, really
yeah,
Teddy Riley.
right. No one
And
coming to see you, Ted.
so Teddy, you're right, he was a producer, but
Yeah,
before he got with Guy, he
yeah,
had produced for a whole bunch of other people. He had been doing hip hop as well as R&B. The one who started the whole
yeah.
New Jack Swing sound and all
And he
that.
put Bobby
So
Brown on, remember?
yeah, uh-huh.
Yeah, made him a
But
star.
yeah, produced for Michael Jackson. I
Yeah,
mean, you can't say enough about
can't.
Teddy Riley and his impact in the 90s.
Yeah,
But that's a good one.
yeah,
But what did Aaron Hall do afterwards?
right. He had that song "I Miss You" was really good. The one with his wife
Don't be
died
don't
and
be
in the movie.
afraid
Don't
was
be
another
afraid.
one.
So he had a
He had some
decent,
moderate success. Yeah,
yeah, moderate,
yeah,
but not what they had with Guy, right?
no.
And that's just it. I mean, most of these, even when Felipe Wynn left my Spinners,
Hmm.
he went on with Parliament, and he
Hmm.
was never the same ever. And to me, the Spinners never got back to that success
No,
that they had with him there. So
no.
let me ask you this question: What do you do as a group when you have a group that's working, and the guy said, "Hey, I want you to call this group Felipe Wynn and the Spinners." Do you do that to keep it together and keep going and just kowtow to
It
the
become
ego, or do you say you
so
go head on? Because
with that in mind
in
though.
retrospect, you can see what happens.
But the the example of that where you just keep going is Frankie Beverly and Maze, right?
Yeah,
They were Maze at first. I
we're
mean, Frankie was
amazed.
doing his own thing, but
That's
then
right.
they were Maze, but then they decided,
Featuring
Frankie
Frankie
said,
Belly. Yeah.
yeah. So and how long did they were they around?
Right. And to
20
me,
something years?
that's the maturity. That's the
Yeah.
maturity in the group to say, hey, you know what? He is the voice of the group without, and that's another reason why Frankie, being from New Orleans, we have adopted him. He's from Philadelphia, but
Hmm.
he's a child of New Orleans and close out every Essence Festival. We all put our white on and all that. God rest his soul. But my point is, he is the voice. Without him, there is no maze. And I think the group was smart enough to see that, to say, hey, this is a concession we can make to keep going. And he was loyal to the group to perform so long,
Yeah.
up to 80 or whatever, because people came to see him.
Yeah.
And so kudos to him to being loyal to the group, to stay and the maturity of the group to accept that as the name, going from Maze to Maze featuring Frankie Beverly.
Yeah. But in life, if you were on a team
Yeah.
and basketball team or whatever,
Yeah.
and they asking you to play second fiddle behind somebody else,
I
how do
think
you
it,
feel as a player?
I think it happens all the time. I think when your boy Michael Jordan was playing, everybody played second fiddle to him. He was the man on the team, and
Yeah,
you
yeah.
had your complementary players. Same thing with Bron and Kobe and all these
Hmm.
others. You have that guy, and if you play sports, you understand that that's that guy. And so either we're going to conform and play with that guy, or we may have to find another team or another job, another profession.
Especially if they're one of those players,
Yeah,
right?
that's what I mean.
A
I'm talking about one
transcendent
of
player,
those
yeah.
players. Yeah,
Um,
I agree.
but
I'm
it,
talking about the special guys, the
yeah,
special players.
but it's tough when you ask to be a role player, you can do
Not
more.
if you're winning, though, man.
That's the other point.
Not if you're winning,
That's the other point.
and that's
Not if you
maturity.
win.
If you're winning,
Yep.
and you have to give up certain, you think of, I hate we go into sports, but you think about the Miami thing when they went down to when
Hmm.
Brian went to Miami, and I think they lost the first year. D Wade went to Brian and said, "Hey, this is your team. I need you to be who you are."
Hmm.
And also, Chris Bosh had to reduce his role in that big three as well, become more of a jump shooter for the system to work.
Hmm.
So Bosh had to reduce himself, and D Wade had to reduce himself to let Brian be who he is, so they can go to that next level. But when you're winning, it's a lot easier
Yeah,
to
it
do.
works out when you win it.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. So I had two more
Go ahead.
breakups that I'm gonna add, and I'm not gonna get adding more detail to them, but
Hmm.
they had an impact on me.
Hmm.
Leaders of the New School on Buster
Buster
Rhymes on
Rhymes. Yeah.
and then Destiny's Child.
Yeah. I
Um,
thought about them as
that was
well.
that was a huge one,
Yeah.
culturally as well as
Yeah.
what happened to the other members
And
of
before
those
then,
groups.
in Vogue, I think, didn't they
You
break
know,
up for a minute?
they did,
Yeah.
but it was more like they just lost members in and out.
Yeah.
And maybe Destiny's Child is too.
Yeah. Yeah. And just to complete the list, I mean, we said the Jackson Five, but around that time frame, you had one of the most popular bands ever. You had the Beatles, right?
Oh man, how can I forget that? Yep.
And then they broke up.
So last one we going Beatles is the last
Let's
one.
leave it there.
What was the reason behind it? Was it management? Was it talent and egos? Or was it outside influences?
Thinking all about, I think it's that talent, man.
Man, I think it was outside
You think
influences.
so?
Yeah,
I
Yoko
think Paul,
Ono.
well, they all were
Yeah,
talented, oh, because you had,
yeah.
yeah, Paul and John were both talented.
So you had the
Yeah.
ego thing going on. But what was it? Not Ringo, but the other guy. Dark Horse
Mm-hmm.
Records. I can't remember his name. The third member of the Beatles. But then you had talent there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they all knew that they were talented, but it wasn't until you had outside influences coming in
Yeah.
and making it seem as though, or really kind of injecting themselves into it, that I think
Yeah.
you ran into the issues.
Yeah. But you see how talented, when they do break up, who sort of rises to the cream rises to the top with
Hmm.
Paul McCartney
Oh,
and
George,
how well he did.
George Harrison. That was
Yeah.
the third Beatle
Yeah.
as far as the talented
Talent.
ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm
Yeah.
not dissing Ringo. I'm just saying
Yeah.
that those
No, he
three
was
were.
talented. I mean, he had
Yeah,
some success, and
yeah.
John did too with producing.
Hmm. Oh,
So
yeah.
yeah,
John had a lot. Linda had
yeah,
a lot of success.
yeah.
But that's it.
Yeah.
And I know that there are a ton more
We leaving out.
breakups that are out there.
Yeah.
And there's probably a lot of contemporaries that we missed out on, maybe like Escape and
Yeah.
Drew Hill and
Yeah.
some others. But that's enough for us to share.
Yeah.
We'd love to hear what you all think of
Right.
some devastating breakups and no makeups, those groups that fell apart when you thought that they should have a lot more success. So
Yep.
chime in, tell us what you think, and add to it if you can. If there's more to the story that we may have shared, feel free to interject that as well.
Yeah.
Connoisseurs and Conversations,
Yeah.
we
Peace.
out.